Hello, everybody. It's Friday and it's the 2nd of October. Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to Facebook Friday. My name is Kate Wakelin and I'm beaming into you from Neuroendocrine Cancer Australia. I nearly called us the Unicorn Foundation. How vague is that? I'm the Net Patient Support Nurse with Neuroendocrine Cancer Australia, and I'm really happy to be joining you today with a special guest, Mark, or Duck, as lots of people know him, Camilleri. So I'm going to introduce Mark to you in a second, but before I go any further, I just wanted to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land that I'm coming to you from, which is the land of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I just would like to pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. One of the things I love about where I live is going for a good long run along the Yarra River, and in the Woiwurrung language that's called the Birrarung. So that's something that I love about where I live. And today in Melbourne, not only is it a beautiful balmy like 27 degrees, which is pretty cool for spring, or pretty warm for spring, but I think everybody in Melbourne particularly are celebrating because our coronavirus cases have gone way down. So lots of us are dreaming about being able to travel more than 5 kilometres out of our bubble, and we're all looking at everybody else all around Australia with great levels of jealousy, looking forward to the time where we can see family and friends further afield. So wherever you're joining us from, welcome. I know there'll be people joining us from our Facebook private discussion group, but there may well also be people watching us on YouTube. So thank you everyone for joining us. I'm going to stop yabbering because I know you're actually not here to listen to me today. You're here to meet our gorgeous Mark. And Mark, thank you so much for joining us. It's so good to see your face on my screen. I wanted to start by, I wondered if you could, now I hadn't told you that I was going to ask you to dance, but could you just show us your t-shirt, please? Okay, so the t-shirt, if you can't see, the t-shirt says never ever give up. For those of you who might lurk around our Facebook private discussion group, you may know the acronym, or you might hear the acronym NEGU, and that stands for never ever give up, which has turned into a little bit of a group mantra, if you like. I know there's actually quite a lot of people who've joined our Facebook group first, fresh this week. So welcome to any newbies. And if you see NEGU around the place, or you see pictures of people wearing those t-shirts, they were actually put together and organised and designed by one of our key Facebook group members. And I can see that she's actually watching us today. So g'day to you. So Mark, thank you so much for joining us. I'm just wondering if we could just break the ice. If you could just tell us a little bit about, give us a bit of a brief snapshot of what your experiences with neuroendocrine cancer have been.
All right, with me, I was diagnosed January 2017. I still remember pretty vividly, actually. I was on my footy trip with me mates, and we're in Thailand, and after about 8 or 9 days, I started to feel a little bit seedy, and just assumed that it was, 20 guys, 10 days of drinking, not much of eating, and I figured that's all it was. Come back and started just dropping heaps of weight. It's pretty much the same story as everybody else, I think. I just started dropping heaps of weight, and from there I started to get pains in the stomach, and then ultrasound, and then I had one guy ultrasounding me, and then all of a sudden I turned around and I heard somebody else, and then he told me to face the wall, and I faced the wall, and then I heard somebody else, and I turned around and got like 5 people standing there, and all of a sudden I'd gone from a sore stomach to they were my team, they told me. So, yeah, basically, long story short, it probably I was very, very lucky, very, very quick. From first pain in December to being diagnosed end of January. So I went to a oncologist. No, she wasn't even an oncologist. She was just a doctor at Footscray, through the emergency area there, and at Sunshine, through the emergency, and she had experience with it. And she said, I'd really like to blood test you and just discount it. And I went, all right. So I done the blood test. I went in a week later, and she had tears in her eyes. She's like, I can't believe you've got it. She goes, I've never ever diagnosed anybody with NETs before. And she goes, and you've got it. And I still can't get my head around this component of it. She goes, oh, you got the good cancer. Now, I don't know about all the people out there, but I just, even to this day, I can't put good and cancer in the same sentence. It's just not it's just mental, I reckon, anyway.
It's
But
like telling people that they're lucky, and I think lucky is like winning Tats Lotto, isn't it?
yeah,
Like
yeah,
not
that's what I
getting
think.
cancer, but that doesn't sort of figure into my perspective of lucky, but it's you got the good cancer.
All the doctors, all the oncologists say to me, oh, if I had cancer, that's the cancer I'd want to have. I'm like, well, you know what? I'd happily give it to you. If you want it, I'm so happy to swap. I'll just take your career on as a doctor and you can have my fatigued body, my fatigue ridden body cancer, I mean, you can have that. I mean, but you know what? At the start of it, like everybody, you just shit yourself. You don't know what's going on. I mean, I went out and got told basically, go home, enjoy your life, do what you can do, because it was my birthday the next day. The day they diagnosed me, not even with NETs, just with cancer. The next day was my birthday. And they go home and try and have a good birthday, but there's not a lot we can do for you. So my assumption was that I was in the latter stages of whatever I had, and that was it. So I went home and I went home and I actually curled up in a ball for a day or two, and then I went to the shops by myself and I bought $400 bloody watches for a 6-year-old and a 8-year-old and a 18-year-old, because I figured it was the last thing I was ever going to be giving them. And
Wow.
and then we went away. A friend of ours had a holiday house on the Mornington Peninsula, and she said, why don't you come up for a couple of days, just get your head around it. So we all went up there, and I got a phone call from the doctor, and she's like, oh, I need you to come in for tests. I said, I thought a week ago there was nothing you could do. And she goes, no, there was nothing we could do that week because it was the Christmas holidays. And I'm just like, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. The way they'd made it sound as if I was such in my late stages of a terminal disease that I couldn't do anything. And I was so panicked and thought, well, my life's over.
Oh,
And
no.
then a week later, get a phone call and said, oh, no, we just couldn't do anything because it was between Christmas and New Year and everybody was on holidays. And I at that point, I cried and I laughed because I thought, all right. And then when I spoke to the doctor, I went back to see Sally, the doctor's name was, and she said, she goes, you're like 48 years old at the time. She goes, we're not going to let a 48-year-old person just die. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not the impression I got from the doctor that basically said, follow the blue line out of emergency because there's not a lot more we can do for you. I'm like, okay. Anyway, lucky, you know what Sylvie's like. My wife's very tenacious, and we had a friend that she managed the emergency department at Footscray and Sunshine Hospitals. So she rang up, the doctors ripped shreds off her. And then after Christmas, she said, right, get your ass back in here. And that's when they did it. And then they went through all the diagnosis and realised I didn't have colon cancer, I had NETs. And we sort of went from there. So, I mean, like everybody, I think you just panic. I curled up into a ball, I really did. And then when I went and had the tests and I went back and I spoke to the other doctors and we determined what it was and we worked out treatments, which was a really, really short period of time. In relation to most people, it was all within 4 weeks. So that was probably my saving grace. I didn't have the stomach problems. Look, I had diarrhea. I was going to the toilet nearly 20 times a day initially. Dropped from, at my peak, I was 138 kilos, and by then I was down to like about 90 kilos. So I dropped about 40 to 45 kilos. And that was the toilet and the weight loss was the catalyst for her wanting to do the tests. But well, at the end of the day, we're here now. Still kicking.
We are, and I'm so thankful for that doctor to follow it, for following a hunch and doing a test that they'd never diagnosed anyone with before, but still she went out there and said, okay, well, let's do this test. But that's such a story about communication. I guess it's a lesson for doctors, if they're watching, to learn about how to communicate with people when they're sort of trying to convey that diagnosis, and just how powerful those initial words can be. And you said it was only 4 weeks, but gosh, that must have been the 4 longest weeks of your life.
Oh, I used to get up in the morning. Like I said, we're at our friend's holiday house, and I used to just get up in the morning, and I'm not even really a coffee drinker, but I'd make a cup of coffee and I'd just hold it for hours, just sitting on the back balcony there, just thinking, all right, and I don't know, like everybody else, I guess, it all gets packed into your brain that I've got to do all these things and I've only got this amount of time to do it. So I always get people even saying to me now, they go, slow down. And I'm like, well, I sleep when I'm dead. It's as simple as that. That's just, I sort of, I don't know what it is. I've just got this drive now. I feel in my own heart that if I can do something and I don't do it, I'm going to regret not doing it later on. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's things I'll draw the line at. I won't bungee jump or any of that stuff, parachute jump. Like, I mean, I draw the line at things that might kill me, but hey, everything else.
Everything else is fair game. Can you just tell us, and I know people who are watching are going to be really interested just to hear, if you can, just a summary of some of the treatments that you've had, because I know you've had quite a bit.
All right, I'll start with, I'll try and remember. There's probably ones I forget in between, but initially after diagnosis, the very first thing they put me on was the 120 mil lanreotide injection, and literally got diagnosed. It was all confirmed, and within a week I was having the first injection. Then they put me on everolimus, the 10 milligram everolimus. That was, I'll be honest, was the worst treatment I've ever had, because I got ulcers, and I didn't get them in my mouth like most people. I got them in my butt. So I know, don't worry, I laugh about it now, but at the time it was excruciating. It was like acid. It was really, and you go into the toilet so much because you're trying to stop going, but you can't. And every time it comes out, it bloody hurts. And the more you go, it hurts even more. So what they did, they took me off the 10 milligram everolimus for a week, let everything settle down, and they put me back on everolimus 5 milligram. And the 5 milligram the body seemed to tolerate it. So I have the lanreotide needles, which I've had about 45 of them now. I'm still having them. The everolimus lasted about 18 months and worked really well, and then it just stopped. It was working, and then bang, just they done a scan, everything got bigger. So they said, we need to look at another treatment. I've had, from everolimus, they put me on Captem, and Captem was, you know what, when you have the first tablet, it's pretty good. When you have the second tablet, it's just brutal. I was knocked out cold. Didn't really work. We done about 5 or 6 cycles of that. Took me off that. Then they put me on, I can't remember which one it was, Full Fox or Full Fury, but I went on one of those. The hair loss and that all happened. That was probably the hardest treatment for me mentally, because when I got diagnosed, we decided to do, and I wasn't much of a traveller, and we decided, and I had the car, I love my cars, and I thought, you know what, bucket list, I want to go to the Maserati factory. I've got a Maserati, an older one, and I thought, you know what, I wanted to go there, so let's do it. And I got really sick over there. That's another story, but we ended up with all the different types of treatments, and that's the everolimus and everything was the stuff that I was using the whole time I was away, and that was great. And then, like I said, then we got onto Captem, didn't really work, just knocked me out. Full Fox, lost all my hair, didn't really do anything. Then they put me on Sutinib, and that didn't work, but he didn't expect that to work because I'd already used everolimus, and he said everolimus and Sutinib are very, very similar, work very much the same way. That's what the oncologist told me. And then we tried Full Fox. One was Full Fury, one was Full Fox. Now, I don't know which one was which, but after about 8 treatments, they done a scan. Well, after 5, they done a scan. They said, bloody, they couldn't believe it. It was actually shrinking. So they kept me on that. But there's 2 components, and there was a second component that was giving me, where your feet start to go all tingly and stuff. So I had to go off one of them because my feet were just starting to, and they still are now, I can't feel my feet. So then they took me off that, but they kept on doing the actual IV chemo till we done 12 cycles. And then since then, what happened, it really shrunk. It shrunk heaps. And I'm also on some herbal stuff, which I checked with Peter Mac, just energy and things like that. And I know I use the cannabis oil as well. That's just something I've checked with Peter Mac. They said they didn't have a problem with it because it wouldn't conflict with anything. So I have a couple of drops of that each night. But in the last 8 months, after the last cycle of Full Fury, whatever it was, they done a scan and one of the tumours in the tail of the pancreas had disappeared completely. The one in the head of the pancreas had reduced really in size a lot. There was 2 spots starting in the lungs, they'd gone, and the liver mets had reduced to maybe a quarter of where they were originally. So they said, well, we'll give you a break. So at the moment, I've been on a break for 12 months. So I've got scans again next week, and we'll see how we go. But yeah, it's just been, like I tell people on the page, it's just because it didn't work for you doesn't mean it's not going to work for the next person or vice versa. And, I was talking to somebody about Cap 10. The way Cap 10 reacted with me by knocking me out may not do that to the next person. So I'd say to people out there, don't be scared based on what other people have said about trying something, because you know what, you might get in it and you might have no symptoms or no side effects, or you may be worse, but it may be working for you. You just don't know. Yeah. It depends what you want to put up with. And everybody says to me, oh, I don't know how you do it. You know what? When you're in this situation, everybody does it. We all do it, so. But anyway, yeah, that's pretty much it. The only thing that's really been consistent all the way through has been the lenalidomide injection. So, and then the rest we come and go now. Could do scans this week. It might start getting bigger again, so they work out the next treatment. I just leave that in the hands of my oncologist, because if I knew what I was doing, well, then I'd be making lots more money than I am.
Mark, I think your story has really highlighted for me a bit like when we were talking, because we talked with Katie, who was another one of our patients last week, and she's also she's like a hamburger with a lot. I say, like, she's had pretty much every treatment in the book, and I think you guys are really good examples of where treatment's really customized. So it's not necessarily a formula that you have one thing and then you'll have another thing, and then the next thing which will happen at this time will be, and I think that can be tricky for people to get their heads around at the start. Well, why haven't I got, like if you had you could get breast cancer, but like for me, if I got breast cancer, I would probably have a fairly set kind of pathway. Yeah. Whereas with NETs, it's more like you could call it a maze, or maybe you could call it a labyrinth, where it's a bit of a process of discovery for both the doctor, your treatment team, as well as you, about, well, what's going to work at the time. So yeah, I thank you for telling us about those treatments, because I think it's really important that people hear that it hasn't just been the one thing, and it hasn't, like there's been swapping and changing and coming back to. And also, I think the really important thing to note that you told us was that when you got side effects, it wasn't that they gave up on that treatment, but they just changed the dosage, and then that was actually able to be tolerated by your body, which was really good news. So I wondered if you could tell us, I'm sure you have plenty of really challenging days, but can you tell us what a good day looks like for you? What, when you're on a things are going well, what's your life? Tell us about that.
Well, we bought a house and we've been doing a bit of renovation. I've got one more room to renovate, which we gutted it out, and then Corona, the restrictions hit, so that's on hold. Like, I've got a room with just battens in there, but I can't really do much there. But a good day for me is waking up in the morning. I'll have a coffee, and again, I'm not much of a coffee drinker, but I like to just sit there in the morning and have my tablets, because I have about maybe a dozen or so herbal tablets, for energy and things like that. So, I'll get up in the morning, I'll have a coffee, and a good day to me is a day where I can wash my car or play around in a car in the garage, or I mow the lawn, or I go out there and I muck around with my dogs, or I'll take the kids to the park. That's a good day to me, I mean, I don't need to be out partying with 75 people to have a good day. I'll be honest, if I wake up in the morning breathing, my life has changed now to the point where if I can get up, have my day, do my things, and then just have dinner at night with my family, and then sit there and watch a bit of TV, sports or movie or something like that, that's a great day for me. I mean, even I love my caravan, and I love a bit of traveling. When I'm away, like we don't go away a lot, but I mean, when we do go away, we go to places like Bali, Vietnam. Well, we're planning Vietnam now, but Bali and Thailand. We love Asia. That's things that we love. So you get up in the morning, you just play each day by ear. But when I'm home, being home is actually a good day. Or even when I go to the caravan, we take the caravan out and we do nothing. We put the deck chairs out and we'll eat and have a few beers and sit by campfire at night. It's crazy because I do that in my backyard here and people complain about it because they're locked down. And then I go caravanning and I'm doing exactly the same thing, just along a river instead of next to a pool. You know what I mean? So we're sort of okay with it. I mean, look, we're not overly wrapped in all this lockdown stuff now. We're getting to the end of it. We've had enough, but we're, you know, a good day at home to me is just the same as a good day anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's the bad days that you worry about.
And so tell us, I know we probably don't want to go into blow-by-blow detail, given that you've already told us that you go to the loo 20 times a day. It's lunchtime. We won't go too far into what but what do you do? Like, you know, we know that living with nets, it is like a roller coaster, but nowhere near as fun. And there are plenty of bad days. And I know that you get plenty of bad days. So tell us what do you do to get through the bad days? What are your go-to strategies?
You know, generally my bad days, I can tell they're going to happen the night before. I know that sounds crazy, but if you're watching TV and if I've got a little bit, I tend to get, because I've had to have a liver stent put in, I've got the stent I thought went in and stayed in, but it doesn't. Every 6 to 9 months, they're supposed to change it. So mine's been going about 18 months and now it's starting to just play up a little bit by giving me cramps in the stomach. I spent a week in hospital recently and they didn't want to do anything till after C19. So I just said, you're all right. But I start to feel a little bit of pain in the stomach. And I'll be honest, a bad day for me is I've got a few different types of painkillers here. I try to avoid them like the plague because you go from one extreme of diarrhea to complete constipation. And in all honesty, I'd rather have the diarrhea than the constipation. That's me. So I really try and avoid the painkillers as much as I possibly can. But a real bad day, I might have a painkiller in the morning and I generally just sit on it. I've got a couch upstairs and I've got KO. So I sit there and watch sport all day. That's a sleep, watch sport, sleep, watch sport. And it's really good because the kids know and Sylv knows when I'm having a shitty day. So they generally, all I do is I get every hour or hour and a half, I'll feel the thermometer going in my ear to make sure that my temperature's right. But I mean, other than that, I generally just, I don't have a great appetite anyway, as it is. So in all honesty, the cannabis oil is what gives me an appetite at night. So I generally don't even eat all day. And then I might have some more 4 or 5 o'clock. And then by about 6 or 7 o'clock, I'm actually a bit hungry. So I generally eat my dinner. But when I'm having a shitty day, I last thing on my mind's food.
It sounds like you're about going with it and distracting yourself and hunkering down and just going with it.
There's not a lot you can do.
Yeah.
You know, like, I mean, Kate, everybody talks about, I'll do this, I'll do that. When you're not feeling good, we all know it. When you're feeling shitty, you don't want to do anything. You want to sit on a couch. You know, a lot of times I'll have the TV on and I'm not even watching it. It's just on, you know. But you know what? In all honesty, I have 100 good days to the one bad day. Wow. So if the worst thing that happens to me in life is, you know, 20 times a year I've got to sit on a couch and watch TV, you know, I can live with that. I can anyway.
Given 3.5 years ago, you were kind of making your bucket list and thinking, well, this is the last.
I didn't think I was going to be here now. Yeah. I really didn't.
Yeah.
And I mean, we were talking about, like, I had my bucket list trip, which was the Europe trip. I'd been to Europe like 15 years ago with my dad and my brother, but never really been on a good holiday. And Sylvie's Italian, so we'd done the Italian trip. And I mean, you all know what happened there. Like, I mean, I caught pneumonia and ended up in Florence and hospital and yeah. I
was all pretty worried, I have to say.
Oh, look, Sylvie went to the doctor and just said to the guy, look, it was like midnight. And she goes, I'll go back and have a bit of a sleep, come back. And he goes, I don't know if he'll be here in the morning. So I had, it turned out that I'd caught pneumonia and it wasn't great. I walked out of hospital weighing about 60 kilos. So, but you know what? Shit happens. I'm still here. I lived and now I'm just planning the next trip. The next trip we want to go to Vietnam. So, you know what? We save over a couple of years to do the trip, and then we do the trip, and in between we do the odd caravan trip. But as long as I'm breathing, I'm living. So
yeah, so it sounds like, you know, thinking about the next fun thing when the bad day's over is another thing that helps you
and look, I don't really have, and I'm very, very lucky, and I know this. I'm really, really lucky, and I don't know if it's whether it's my attitude, or I don't know if it's because of the herbal stuff that I take. I don't know what caused it, but when I have a bad day, it is generally one day, maybe 2 days.
Yeah.
I don't have, and I'm very, very lucky in that I don't have the successive week or 2 weeks of pain. Even when I was in hospital last time, I went into hospital, I was in excruciating pain in the stomach. Went to hospital, they gave me a painkiller, and basically the pain went away. And then the next 4 or 5 days in hospital, while it's batshit boring because you can't do anything except for watch a damn TV, I'm not in any pain. You know what I mean? The only thing I don't like about hospitals is their food. It's crap, but hey.
Yeah. Yeah.
But Peter Mac's different. Peter Mac's food's great. Believe it or not.
Free plug for Peter Mac food.
Yeah, free plug.
Mark, you do a bit of you've done some training recently to become a volunteer. I wondered, I know this is really new for you because you've only just kind of finished doing this training, but I wondered if you could tell us a bit about that role and why it was that you thought that you'd like to do that.
Well, go right back to the start. It's your fault. Because I remember you talking about this at one of the meetings in where were they, in the library there where we used to go, right? And I remember you bringing it up in conversation, and I come home and I thought about it, this Cancer Connect volunteer stuff, and thought, you know what? I think at the very start of I hate the word journey, I call it adventure, right? I use the word adventure because I know where I started, but I don't know where it's going to end. So to me, that's an adventure, a journey. You know where it starts, know where it finishes. Sylvia will be watching this laughing her guts out because she knows I can't stand that word journey. And everybody says to me, oh, you're on a journey. I'm on a freaking journey. I'm on an adventure. That's how I like to think of it anyway. But yeah, when we were there talking, and I thought, well, if I was at the start of this and somebody with a little bit of knowledge about it would help you through, I was very, very lucky. I got onto the unicorn group quite early, so I was lucky in that respect. But there's a lot of people confused. So I spoke to the people at Cancer Connect, and I thought, I'm interested in doing it. And then they put you through an interview process and to make sure you're the right, I suppose, temperament, personality. I mean, another thing is they're really I wouldn't say strict on, but they're very they look at the different people, and they're very big with the people too, that diverse ethnic groups, because you don't, any of us come from anywhere that can have this. So they're very cautious like that. They've had experiences in the past where they've had problems. So they do that. And they're not just done the training and a couple of test calls, and then they give you a random call, and you don't you know you're being tested, but you don't know who it is on the other end of the line. And basically a couple of weeks ago, they said to me, yeah, no, it's all good now. So I'm an active, well, I don't know what the word they use, but they've got I'm an active person. So basically what happens is, if somebody that's got NETs rings up Cancer Connect, they then will give me their details. I'm allowed to speak to them 5 or 6 times. They don't want you to get too friendly, but I've actually even spoke to them and said, well, my dilemma is that if I speak to somebody, the first thing I'm going to do is refer them to the unicorns, because that's where I see the wealth of information from all the people that are on the group. So I said, but that's going to really, because you're not supposed to give your names and details and everything else. I said, but I've got it. I'm going to put somebody onto this group. They're going to see me. They're going to put 2 and 2 together. And they're like, yeah, well, they're okay with it in that respect. They're just not super okay with it when you organise meetings and you go and meet somebody for a coffee or something like that. So
I reckon, having worked with unicorn neuroendocrine cancer for 5 years, one of the things that really stands out to me that's maybe a bit different from some other kinds of groups that I've worked with in the past is that our unicorns are really good at making community for themselves, and I've seen it worldwide where patients really, and maybe it's just that because you're unusual, you really cluster together, but the strength of the support and the community that I see in the various, like the face-to-face support groups, in the Facebook community, when we do forums and things like that, that sense of really deep connection between people is I think quite unique. And I think so programs like Cancer Connect may not be quite so accustomed to that, because you don't see that so much in other kind of cancers. But just for those of you who are wondering, so Cancer Connect is a collaboration between, well, it's a program from Cancer Council, and probably 4 or 5 years ago, when we were talking with Cancer Council and saying, could we collaborate in training some volunteers, because they didn't have anyone in their system who had had a neuroendocrine cancer. So now we train volunteers, and if you're a person who's been diagnosed with a neuroendocrine cancer, often we can get you referred to a volunteer like Mark, or actually Katie, who we spoke to last week, is another one of our volunteers. We can often match in terms of treatment. So if you're going on to a treatment, we can often match a volunteer who's had that kind of treatment, or might be in a similar life phase or age. You can, so to be referred to that, you can actually just do it through me. So, you know, you can get in touch with me via the Net Nurse email address on our website or on my phone line, or you can call the Cancer Council directly. So they're on 13 11 20. But ring me and then I can refer directly into the program, and you get the awesome privilege of chatting with someone like Mark for a few phone calls. And the feedback we get is that it's just so helpful to talk to someone who's been through it. So yeah, look, that's probably the plug for Cancer Connect.
I think that's the biggest thing. I mean, you know, straight up, I mean, I'm pretty cut and dry. Like, I mean, I got diagnosed, I shit myself, and I'm pretty sure everybody that gets diagnosed with it, it's for the reasons that you said at the start. I don't think you quite comprehend what your treatments are about, because I know people that have had breast cancer, and I know people that have had leukemia, and my brother passed away of another type of cancer. So, I mean, I understand there's treatments in place, but with this, it's just hit and miss. That's the thing, you know. But the fact that it is so slow growing generally gives you time, in that if something's not right or the treatment's not working, it's not like everybody rushes and has to do something in the next 5 minutes. They can stop, think, have a little bit of a week to look at what's going on, and then work out your next treatment, which is, it gives you time, which, you know, like when I watch other people with leukemia and that, especially my brother-in-law, they were able to say to him on any specific day, at any specific time, this is what's going to happen to you, right? You're going to be sick, or you're going to be good, you're going to be high, you're going to be low, you're going to be vomiting. And they could tell him exactly what he was going to do a couple of hours in a lot of cases before it actually happened. Where with this, it doesn't work like that. With this, I mean, I had an injection when I was in hospital. My eyes started burning, and I just instantly started throwing up. And he goes, well, I didn't know what it was. He didn't know what it was. So one of the drugs they'd given me just reacted with just a painkiller. And that's how it manifested in me, where the next person might have exactly the same thing and not have a drama at all. So, but anyway, we live and learn, and we all bounce off each other, which I like, because I don't know everything. I know this much when it comes to this stuff, where other people have had so much experience, and I know that it might not be the same for me as it is for them. But you know what? Sometimes it's just as good for the other person to have somebody listen to what they're saying, because they value their advice. So
the other thing I was going to say about that peer support is that we can also connect carers up with other carers. So that's something we haven't really promoted very widely. We don't have any carers of people who've had neuroendocrine cancer yet, but if you've been a carer, or you are a carer and you're keen on volunteering, then we can have that conversation. But we've got Cancer Connect have carers of people with other sorts of cancers, and often there are lots of parallel experiences, even if it's not the same tumour. It's often not quite so specific to the type of treatment you've had or where the tumour is. It's more about what it's like to be a carer and stand by. And I know, Mark, you've talked about Sylvia, and I can see she's actually watching us in the group, as like 10 billion of your friends on Facebook. But we know that that's a stressful, really stressful adventure for people when they're working, when they're a family member or they're a carer of someone with this. And so we're really keen to make sure that you get the support you need. And so Cancer Connect is one way to do that. The other thing that we've got, that I'll give a little plug, because it seems to be my time to give plugs, is we've got a carers Facebook private discussion group. So that's just another a private space where if you're a carer, you can kind of say it how it is. So if the person's driving you bonkers, and you know, they do, because we all drive each other bonkers occasionally, that there's a private space for that debriefing and that venting and the support.
Sylvia will never need that part of it.
Oh, no, Sylvie just has nothing but no. Anyway.
I'm never hard work or a bird, ever.
Oh, I couldn't imagine, Mark.
Right now, Sylvie's just fell off a chair and choking on whatever she was eating. And
I'm just not going to tell you what's in it.
I'll read it after.
Mark, I wondered if I could ask you, what's the most surprising thing that you found about having nets?
All right. Like I said, my experiences with cancer were not with nets. They were always with other forms of cancer. And I watched these people go under treatment and everything else. And whenever they were going like breast cancer treatments or other type of treatments, they were months and months just in bed and things like that. With nets, what I found is I can still live my life. And I think most people, once they mentally get their head around, okay, I have this, you can still live a really, to me anyway, a really quite normal life. Yeah, it's modified because I don't know about the others, but I still get fatigued. Fatigue is probably my biggest problem. But you can still live a life. Like, I mean, right at the very start, I remember a couple of people, and we were talking about holidays, and I'd just been to, I think we'd been to Bali at that stage, and we just went to Bali. We come home, and there was somebody sent me a message, and they asked me about travel, and I said, look, travel insurance, forget about it, right? So there's ways around that. You can either pay a lot of money or you can work your way around it. Yeah. And one of the people in the group actually said to me, he said to me, he goes, you've only got to get back to Australia when you're in Bali. And I'm like, yeah, but that's like a 6-hour flight. He goes, no, that's like 45 minutes. And I go, no, it's not. He goes, you don't need to get back to Melbourne, mate. You only just need to get back to Australia. Let them worry about it when you're here. So he's right. If you're in Bali or anywhere there, get to Cairns, get to WA, and let your ambulance subscription worry about it from there. So there's loopholes and there's ways around doing things. I mean, we went on holidays, come back, a lady sent me a message and said she was really scared because of a few things. Anyway, long story short, they went on a cruise for a few days and she sent me back a message and said it was the best thing she'd ever done, had such a good time. She wasn't the one with nets, her partner was. But that's what makes me feel good. Like, you can live your life. You don't have to just stop and be the cancer patient. I don't know. That's me. I think that, you know, if it's a shitty day, or even if you're on holidays and something's not right, well, you can always deal with it. Like I said, there's always a way around something. I'm the expert in finding ways around everything. I'll always find a little loophole and things like that. But, you know, just live your life normally. It doesn't have, you know what? We all know that in the end, this is going to probably shorten our lives or make it a little bit tougher at the end of it. But while you've got the ability to be able to do stuff, do it. Don't regret not doing it later. That's the only thing that I can, you know, that's the thing with me. Just don't regret not doing it later on. I should have done this or I should have done that. Well, you know what? I did it.
Yeah.
Simple.
Yeah. Oh, I love it, Mark. And my final question for you was going to be around, you know, what piece of advice you would give yourself. You give Mark from nearly 4 years ago. And I actually think you probably have just said it in the just do it. But is there anything that you would add?
Oh, look, I've just, over this time, I've just sort of realised now I've got a little bit of a motto I always say. It's like live life, love life, because we only get one shot at it. And that's pretty much it. A bad day, if you're having a bad day, well, I'm not saying go out and eat a cake. I'm just saying if you're having a bad day, deal with the bad day. But when you're having a good day, don't remember that bad day because that bad day's gone. You know what I mean? It's just, I don't know, I think life's, if you have something to look forward to, this is my way of thinking. If I have something to look forward to, well, I enjoy doing what I'm doing. You know what I mean? Because and then just before I achieve that and I know I'm about to achieve that, then I set myself the next thing. And then that way, I don't know, that's just, I just do stuff like, you know, little secret, we were talking about it before. We've been talking about, me and a few people have been talking about Mardi Gras and things like that. So that's something that we're looking into that we want to do for 2022. You know what I mean? I mean,
for that.
imagine the party that would be.
For that.
Right? you know. And I've had a couple of people sent me unicorn girl outfits, and they go, maybe you'd want to wear this. And you know what? I would, because I don't care. I'd love to. I reckon it'll be the party of all parties. And you know what? I get to do it with my friends. And that's it at the end of the day. Yeah. You know, I don't look at the shit that I don't have. I look at the stuff that I do and really enjoy it. Enjoy life. Don't give up. Never give up. Never.
Mark, can I just thank you from the bottom of my heart? I feel like I feel so lucky, and this is not about me, but as a health professional, as a nurse, working with people like you and all of the community, they just bring me so much joy, and it's brought me so much joy to listen and chat with you today. I know it's brought joy to lots of other people who've been watching, but I think along the way you've given us some really fantastic pearls or diamonds in the rough of wisdom in terms of that. You know, I guess reframing all of this as an adventure, and you know, moving on from the hard stuff and looking forward to the stuff that you're looking forward to. And so thank you, because you're just so generous, and we ask you all the time to talk with us and share your story, and you're doing volunteer work, and we know, you know, you're busy, you've got cars and kids and dogs and wives and life.
Wife. No wives.
One
wife. One.
Just one. One's good.
Enough.
We love you so much, Mark. Thank you so much. There's, as you might imagine, there's gazillions of comments and lots of love coming to you from the Facebook group. So I'll let you hop in afterwards, and you can respond to some of those messages if you want to. Just a little bit of housekeeping plug stuff from Kate before we finish up for the day. The first thing is, you might have seen our e-newsletter in your inbox last week. If you didn't, check your spam folder. Rookie error for me for the first 4 years of working with neuroendocrine cancer is that I realised that our e-newsletters were going into my spam box. So you might be like me. So if you thought you'd signed up for the e-newsletters and you're not getting them, have a look in your spam box. If you haven't requested them, you can do that on our Neuroendocrine Cancer Australia homepage, which is just all the w's.neuroendocrine.org.au. And that's how you can also get in touch with me if you need to talk things over or answer questions about your particular situation. 2 more things I desperately need to tell you about. The first thing is that there is where I know you guys out there in Unicorn Lounge do a lot of surveys for us, and we've got another one for you. It's an interesting survey actually around treatment preferences, and it's asking, getting some information from patients about the kinds of languages and the explanations about things like side effects that are helpful to have explained to you. So it's an interesting survey. It's really asking for your thoughts and your feedback, and we know that when we ask patients what works for them and what's going to be good for them, we get things better. We get better services, we get better training for doctors, we get better drugs, we get better everything. So I would just really urge you to take part in that survey. There was a link on the e-newsletter, and there's also one in the Facebook private discussion group. I'll make sure there's a link in the notes as well. The other thing that's really important is that we are in the final stages of putting together a GP training program. It's an education program for general practitioners out there in the community and it'll be free. GPs will be able to do it online. They'll get their CPD points, so they'll be able to kind of use it as part of their professional education requirements. But it's 4 modules about looking after people, or diagnosing and looking after people with NETs. We've got a question for you, which we really want your thoughts and feedback about. Now, there is a conversation in the Facebook group, but know that not everybody watching is on Facebook. So you can comment in the YouTube, or you can comment on this video, or comment on the actual conversation in Facebook. But the question is, what advice would you give your GP in helping you manage your NETs? Because we want GPs to feel really they're such an essential part of your team, but I think often they might not know or they might not feel confident in their knowledge about nets, and sometimes they might not know what's important to you as patients. So if you could just shoot us a line, you know, if there is a piece of advice you would give your GP about looking after you with nets, what would you like your GP to know? I don't know, Mark, if you've got any thoughts off the top of your head.
Look, I was lucky. My GP, when I walked in there, I told him what I had. He looked at me like he had no idea. But you know what? I've been really, really lucky again with that. He grabbed my folder, he put it on top, and I go, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'll leave that here." He goes, "Tonight, when I've got a bit of a chance, I'm going to read and research it." And whenever I go there now, he's got, because I opted to do that link where all the GPs, Peter Mac, they're all, the doctor link is all together. So he looks and he can see the Peter Mac reports, he can see blood test results, he can see everything, and it's really, I like it, but I'm not one of these guys that's, you know, worried about DNA and doctors and government having DNA and any of this sort of stuff, because I mean, if they haven't got it by now, they're stupid, because I've been a Peter Mac that many times and given that many tissue samples as well as everything else. So I think the more information my GP has at hand, the better.
And we're really excited that the program will help people, like you know, your GP now, if this was now, or at least when we've launched the program, which will be in the next few weeks, the GP will be able to go, you can tell that, like, if you're newly diagnosed, you'll be able to say to your GP, do the modules with Neuroendocrine Cancer Australia, and that'll give you everything you need to know.
I'm actually going to suggest that to him when I go and see him next. I've got to go there and see him next soon anyway. So yeah, good.
Well, look, we're really interested to hear other people's thoughts about that question. So the piece of advice for your GP, don't forget about that survey about communication, about treatment preferences. Have a look at the e-newsletter. And Mark, thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to chat with you, and I feel very appreciative of your time and your energy. And you're like, gosh, you're a wise dude.
Mate, if we're allowed out of here, we're going to see how we go about organising another bit of a Christmas bash like we did last year, just at one of the local pubs or something. But we're going to make sure that they can do the numbers and all that, and then we'll organise something. But I haven't wanted to organise anything because it's just, you know, I don't want to organise and cancel. I'd rather just wait and then
definitely get there.
It's all good.
All right, I'm going to end the broadcast. Hang in there, Mark, and we'll chat afterwards. But thanks everybody for joining us today, and we'll see you soon.